Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Thursday morning to you all. I hope you guys are doing great out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day. And I hope everyone's been having a great week out there so far. We got a few things to go over in this morning's video. And the first thing we'll talk about, of course, is current conditions, the latest outlooks. After we get done doing that, we'll break down the country section by section. Now, the flow of this video will be a little bit different. Tropical Tidbits is down again, and I use that a lot in my videos, as you guys know. So we're really just going to utilize pivotal weather, which I usually use in my videos anyways, but that will pretty much be the main thing I use. So if you notice a difference in how I'll break down areas, I might cover this area before another area, and you tune in, all the time, and you notice that little difference, well, you're still going to get really good information. In fact, I would argue you're going to get better detailed info because of these graphics I'm going to pull up. They just take longer to put together. But anyways, enough of all that. We'll zoom in to some areas that have that higher risk of strong to severe thunderstorm activity. We even have a higher tornado risk across areas of the Midwest. So we'll speak on that. And then we'll talk about the severe and flooding risk days to come. And then we'll be done with the video. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. Asking for prayers for me and my family. Nothing serious at all. It just seems like ever since we got back from vacation Sunday, everything is trying to break in our house. Nothing too serious. It could be worse. We could have an AC out. We could have something much worse going on. But we had a ceiling fan that just randomly stopped working. And got that fixed. And like I said, not a big deal at all. But now our dishwasher has stopped working, and for whatever reason, we are running through dishwashers. I think this will be our third one in the last 9 years, but I don't know if it's a major failure or anything like that. So I'll get that figured out. But I really think it's something about the heat. I really do. It just seems like everybody is dealing with something when it gets this hot. Whether your AC breaks, your car's overheating, you're having car issues, some sort of electrical issues. It just seems like when it's hot, more power is being used, weaknesses is exposed, and it just seems like everything breaks when it gets this hot. And that has been the case. So hopefully we can get a substantial cool down over the next several days, and we'll speak on that. So enough of all that. Let's get rocking and rolling. So this is current conditions. We got a big slug of rain going across areas of the Midwest, moving into the upper Midwest. We got rain up here in areas of Michigan, the Great Lakes region, but it's more so up here in eastern Canada. And then we got some heavy rain out here across southern New England. We got rain moving into western New York. And the leftovers of this MCS, Mesoscale Convective System, moving across areas of the mid and deep south. We had some pretty wild storms yesterday across the Carolinas, especially. We had one hit my house around 8:30 last night. It was pretty intense, but anyways, the western U.S., a little bit of flow. This will set up a severe weather day. A little bit of one today, but more so for tomorrow across the northern plains. So this is current conditions, latest watches, warnings, and advisories. Heat advisories across areas of the eastern U.S., still up in the orange areas. And we still have some excessive heat warnings up in West Virginia and southeast Ohio. Some flood watches lingering around in New Mexico and western Texas, but we do have new ones up for areas in Nebraska, Iowa, etc. So that's that. Latest stuff from the tropics. Andrea is no longer with us, so we're back to seeing this. No tropical activity expected over the next 7 days. So there continues to be nothing to talk about in the tropics. It's definitely been one of the quieter starts to hurricane season that we've seen in the last several years. So that's good news with that. The Storm Prediction Center outlook, the dark green is what we call a marginal risk, level 1 out of 5. So if you live in those areas, you might not get a drop of rain, but you could get a pretty intense thunderstorm. So a little bit of a risk of severe weather. Up here in Montana, also sections of North Dakota with some flow overlapping some thermodynamics, but a little bit of a higher risk of severe weather in this yellow area is what we call a slight risk, a level 2 out of 5. And this is for these regions here. Waterloo, I could mention, every town under the sun in these areas if I wanted to, but we'd be talking all day. But Dubuque, so hopefully you can see these areas pretty well. But really what's driving this threat, there is a an appreciable tornado threat in this region today. If you live in the Brown area, let's back it off a little bit. Brown area, that is a 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles on any given location. So legit tornado risk in this area today. 2% risk in the green region. That includes Madison, La Crosse, Dubuque and Waterloo, Mason City. You guys are in that 5% risk. So the wind threat, there is a 15% risk in winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour in this area. And the hail threat, not much of a hail producer today with any of these setups. I mean, there is a 5% risk down here for areas of the southeast and mid-Atlantic. So now moving into the excessive rainfall outlook, we do continue to have the risk of flash flooding. I mean, we picked up over an inch of rain at my house here in central South Carolina in like 30 minutes last night. So it could happen fast, but if you live in these yellow areas, this is a 15% risk of flash flooding within 25 miles of any given location to occur in this region. And then we have an area also for the DC, Baltimore area, getting up into central and eastern areas of PA. It does extend all the way into a very small section of the southern tier of New York. So just be mindful of some flooding for today. Now this is what I'm talking about. We're going to have to break it down a little bit more zoomed in section by section. So most people should appreciate this because you'll be able to see more. It just doesn't show all the town names and stuff. If we did a state-by-state breakdown, guys, I mean, we'd be talking for 2 hours on these videos every morning, which I know some people wouldn't mind, but most people, I don't think, wants to watch a weather video that long. But starting off this morning, it shows these storms are going to weaken pretty fast across the mid to deep south, and I could see that happening, eventually losing some gas here. But we start to get to about midday, early afternoon, some pop-up thunderstorms begin to refire across the peninsula of Florida. Thunderstorms always popping off in this area of southwest North Carolina. That's like a hot spot for early afternoon thunderstorms in the summer. Seems like it always is. Hendersonville, Brevard, Asheville, these areas seem to always get thunderstorms really early in the afternoon. But just some pop-up activity elsewhere. Panhandle, Florida looks pretty active. And then we start to get into this evening. This is showing some heavy thunderstorm activity in northern Alabama, areas of central Alabama, northern Georgia. And any of these storms could hit severe limits. Maybe a more organized cluster in northern Alabama could get a slight risk issued somewhere inside this marginal risk area. But, it shows South Carolina, a good chunk of Georgia being relatively quiet, but might not be the case. But then you get into the overnight hours, what's left over will lose steam just with the loss of thermodynamics, daytime heating, and then that's it. So the main area of the south I would watch out for is really these clusters of storms here. Could be more so in Mississippi. Could be where it's showing, Alabama. Could be more north into middle Tennessee, so we'll be careful with that. Mid-Atlantic, areas of Ohio Valley. This shows a lot of areas. Starting off this morning, not a whole lot going on. And then we start to get to about midday. A little bit of storm activity in southwest North Carolina that likes to show up. And then we'll get to about the mid-afternoon time period. And you just see pop-up showers and storms. And these could pop up over anybody, guys. I mean, it's going to be hard. Get the same question every summer. When is it going to rain today, Mitch? And I hate saying this because it makes me feel like, man, everybody knows me as the weather guy. But I have to give people the I don't know answer. And I have to do that to some folks in the comments also and on social media. Because I truly don't know. I just know that I would say you just need to know that your area runs a risk of thunderstorms a day. But trying to pinpoint where a pop-up thunderstorm is going to form, we have no clue. And it's funny, a lot of people will look at the future radar on the Weather Channel app. I have one person that came up to me early yesterday morning, says, looks like the storms are going to miss my area tonight based off what I'm seeing. I was like, what are you seeing? And he lives in Aiken, South Carolina, so he has a little bit of drive from Columbia. I'm like, what are you seeing? He's like, well, it looks like it's splitting on the thing I'm looking at. I was like, man, you can't get so hyper-focused on these future radars, which is kind of what I'm showing you. But we just kind of look at it as guidance, is, hey, where are these storms clustering up the best, So just keep in mind that what you're seeing here, even what I'm showing you, isn't exactly what's going to happen. We just kind of look at it and say, okay, there might be a higher chance of storms in this area, but it still might not storm in that area. And I think Model Guys did pretty well with yesterday's event across areas of the southeast. But as you can tell, just pop-up activity. These storms will kind of drift around, be what we call outflow boundary driven. It'll pop off rain-cooled air. But, some areas will get hit. Some areas won't get a drop of rain. But, we get into the overnight hours and things will begin to calm down. But just pop-up and nature type stuff. Now, really talking about the the northeast, southern sections of New England, getting some steady downpours this morning. I think this action will begin to kind of loosen up a little bit this afternoon, but we're probably going to get some more thunderstorm activity in maybe northern areas of PA and southern tier of New York. We'll see what happens with that. And it's almost kind of strange that they have a slight risk of excessive rainfall in these regions down here when model guidance really isn't showing a whole lot of storm activity. I mean, it shows this cluster of storms here, but I think it's picking up on this right here, which is where you have that slight risk of excessive rainfall. So they're thinking that maybe these storms could drop a lot of heavy rain today, and they are the experts. And speaking of how much storm action how much rain they're calling for in this area, not a whole lot, maybe a half an inch of rain in these regions, but this area has already picked up a lot of rainfall lately. So, but moving forward here and kind of zooming into a good chunk of an area we've already talked about, but just kind of showing more of Arkansas and stuff now. But we've talked about Ohio, Indiana, but you see the storms popping up there, and then we start to get into the evening hours. Be careful of these storms in northern Alabama, but more organized stuff trying to move into northern areas of Missouri later this evening. I mean, this is getting into after the sunset, so we could get a nasty line of storms. You live in northern Missouri later tonight, so be mindful of that. But, Arkansas looks pretty calm. Not a whole lot of lift going on. Your area hot, but not a whole lot of relief with thunderstorms. Now, the upper Midwest, this will be an area we'll hang out with for a second here. But we start to get to about early afternoon. You see those thunderstorms. Those look pretty intense. Now, we have some better overlapping ingredients for more high-end severe weather in this area. So this is this afternoon. You see the storms going across southern Minnesota, areas of Iowa, individual supercells in areas of southeast Minnesota and western Wisconsin. Now, these could produce a tornado. You see the squiggly lines coming off of them. This indicates more intense, stronger updrafts. And we keep this going. We can get it going. And line of storms continues to surge across Iowa this evening. And then it surges across Wisconsin later on this evening. And we could get some thunderstorm activity also tonight across the UP and Michigan. And then we take us all the way to about daybreak tomorrow. And could still be dealing with a lot of heavy rain and storm activity in the UP and Michigan in the wee hours of the morning. But of course, like we always do with these higher end severe risk areas, we'll zoom in. Closer look at Iowa here. Starting off around midday, you see the storms for the north and northwestern areas of the state. But you see these pink areas here, white. These storms could produce, even though the hail risk is very low, they could still produce some hail. And they could produce strong gusty winds. And there's that 5% risk of a tornado. So these will have an opportunity to produce tornadoes today. This is 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m. Storms hitting Des Moines, Marshalltown, Waterloo potentially. 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11, and midnight. Things should begin to calm down in this area. We take a look at Wisconsin, and we will include southeast Minnesota in this graphic also. But starting off around midday, about 2 p.m. now, Rochester, La Crosse, you folks could get some individual supercells, and these could produce a tornado. Like, look at this one. Look at that one. Might not be exactly where these form, but it's around 3 p.m., pretty early in the day. These storms could be intense and produce all hazards. And we continue to get to about 5 p.m. There's a boundary. These storms will try to ride that boundary. But individual supercell here. So, La Crosse, Stevens Point, northern Madison, Oshkosh. And then we get more of an intense line of storms, rocking areas of southeast Minnesota, 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m. Storms just surging across a good chunk of central, moving into southern Wisconsin. Wisconsin. I'm struggling with my voice this morning. 9, 10 p.m. at Stevens Point, Wausau. Hopefully I said that right. Storms up for my friends here in the UP and Michigan also. And then the storms make it all the way to the western coastline of Lake Michigan by about midnight tonight, give or take an hour. So, be mindful of these storms, guys. And one thing I do want to show you guys is the updraft Felicity swath, indicating just where we could have some intense and also rotating updrafts in these areas. It likes the idea of that with these storms here. So tornadic storms are possible in areas of southeast Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin for this afternoon. So just be aware of that, and I will take a large look at how much rainfall can happen in these regions. Let's look at this, that. Good bit of rain could fall in an area between, Nebraska, southeast South Dakota, and this is really what's going on right now through Iowa, all the way into southern areas of Minnesota, into Wisconsin. Look how much rain could happen into the UP and Michigan. A few inches of rain could fall in these regions. So definitely an active period of weather up here continues. So continuing to move forward here, looking at the south central U.S. And we'll move into about midday. Just some normal run-of-the-mill thunderstorm activity along and just inside the coastline of Texas down here. But the storms have kind of calmed down in like northern Texas lately. Now we are going to have a push of moisture that will get going in western Texas, and look at those thunderstorms in western Oklahoma. So I would watch this area, western Oklahoma. Stormy times this afternoon to this evening, and then we start to get to about late evening, the overnight period. Some storms downpours could be dancing around here in the panhandle of Texas, areas of Oklahoma, and then we start to get into tomorrow morning, and we could have an area of moisture that is ongoing in areas of Oklahoma and so forth. So, nothing too crazy, but, just want to zoom into my friends here. And just to zoom in, look at the Central Plains here. We start to get to about midday. We take it to about the afternoon hours. Thunderstorms are possible in New Mexico. Some of these could slip into southeast Colorado. And just be mindful of some storms also at the very tail end of southeast Nebraska. You see these intense storms south of Omaha, heck, even southeast of Lincoln. These could be very intense. They might increase the severe weather threat for these areas in later outlooks. And we could get some thunderstorms later tonight. I mean, this is 04Z, so this is late evening, getting close to midnight in like Kansas City. Storms could make it all the way to like Columbia, Missouri. We'll see if that happens. But waking up tomorrow morning, just clusters of rain here and there. And the north central U.S., most of this area is on the cooler side of all this severe weather activity. So just some light rain in the eastern Dakotas. I think the heaviest activity will stay around Minneapolis, points south. But it looks like the Dakotas is pretty quiet. Now, we could have some strong to severe thunderstorm activity in eastern Montana later on this afternoon to this evening. Some of the storm activity will eventually try to drift into western North Dakota, but I don't expect anything too wild in this area today. Tomorrow might be a little bit of a different story, and we'll get to that in the next video. But the entire western U.S., it's been pretty quiet out here. We're going to get some storms, and even in western Montana and the central sections of the state. So be mindful of these storms here. But most of everybody else continues to be quiet. But there is going to be an active period that really gets going here in the next several days for like Arizona and the southwest as we get influxes of moisture into this region. Temperatures, you guys are finally on the cooler side of all of basically this boundary. So New England is going to be nice today. Going to have a risk of some storms, but nice, only in the 70s. New York City will get a break too, but there'll be a difference in like southern New Jersey compared to northern New Jersey. Southern New Jersey could still get into the 80s and 90s, the Delmarva 90s. Just not as hot today compared to the last 2 days. Yesterday was brutal when you compare the actual temperatures with the humidity. But still a very warm day, but honestly, this isn't too far away from average for this time of the year across the southeast. We're still going to get some mid to even upper 90s for certain areas. So the central U.S. as far as temperatures, not too bad. I mean, normal summer type stuff. In fact, it's cooler up here for the north central U.S. Wisconsin will be a funny state today where the southern areas of the state will get into the 80s and 90s. Northern areas, 60s and 70s. You can quite literally tell where there's a boundary right into here and how these storms will latch onto a boundary, separating cool and warm air. And those boundaries, because there's a difference in a directional flow, put a spin in the atmosphere, and you end up getting a risk of a tornado. But the plains of Montana definitely rocking with the heat, 90s. And then you look at the western U.S., nothing too crazy, really at all. But looking at severe weather risk days to come, large slight risk across the Dakotas into areas of Minnesota, extends into a small section of Nebraska. We got a marginal risk. Same pattern, weak upper low continues to pivot moisture across the southeast up into the Alps, into the mid-Atlantic areas of the mid to deep south. But just taking a closer look at this slight risk here, there is a 2% risk of a tornado through the heart of the Dakotas all the way down to northern Nebraska. The wind threat, 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. But the hail threat is a little bit higher. Red area, 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. The black outline region, though, this is where we have a 10% risk of significant sized hail. So these storms will definitely be more active tomorrow, that's for sure. But the excessive rainfall outlook will zoom back out here. Nothing too crazy. I will watch this area here in the far northern interior areas of New England. You guys have a 15% risk of excessive rainfall occurring. And then we will back it up to the Storm Prediction Center and look at day 3. And we have another severe weather threat shifting more east and southeast for day 3, which will be Saturday. So a level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather for Minneapolis down into North Platte, Broken Bow, Sioux City, Sioux Falls, Brookings. You guys all have this. So definitely some intense weather will shift a little bit south-southeast, south compared to what we're going to see tomorrow. But 15% risk of severe weather is all we know as of right now. Excessive rainfall for day 3. Nothing too crazy to really talk about there. That's all I got, guys. I'm not going to get super deep into any long-range stuff. Honestly, there's not a whole lot to really speak on besides normal sort of run-of-the-mill summer stuff. I mean, so we're going to keep on looking. I'll be completely real with you guys. I have not had a whole lot of time to really deep dive into the pattern coming up. If I'm just being completely real with you, been distracted by other things going on. It's like I said in the beginning of the video, we've come back from vacation to just active stuff with things breaking in the house and nothing too crazy. Like I said, not complaining. And just venting to you guys. You guys are like my family here too. But we came back and we have at our church, we call it Summerfest, which is pretty much vacation Bible school, and came back to that. My wife's been volunteering with that. My little girl had a little bit of a fever last night. In fact, it wasn't a little bit, it was 101 degrees. So, just have came back to just a small version of chaos, but it's nothing compared to what, a lot of people out there are dealing with. So I try to remember that, but that's all I got. You guys have a wonderful day. Stay safe with the weather out there. Take the heat safety serious, and we'll talk soon. God bless.